きの光に誓って愛と正義の力で戦う星々が味方する因果を守護者たち
In this video, we are going to be talking all about Neptune entering Aries here, just as we close up March and move on into April of 2025. And what this means, not only on an individual or personal level, major theme changes going on for all of us, but also what is going on the spiritual and, yes, even global levels. Now, Neptune going into Aries is a very big deal because whenever we have Neptune move signs, it's pretty much a reality turnover. We are closing up a 14-year cycle, a 14-year continuity. In this case, going all the way back to 2011, and we are ushering in and stepping into something completely brand new. Now, Neptune, as a rule, has a tendency to do a lot of major closures and completions, which is a big part of Neptune's theme. Neptune rules the final sign of the zodiac. But Neptune moving into Aries, the sign of new beginnings, independence, initiation, boldness, action, and courage, well, it's the end of a lot of roads that we've come to this point in our lives on, and also the end of a lot of future plans we may have had for those roads. Now, that can sound like a brand new world, a brand new road, a brand new day for some people, and for some people, it could be very scary. It's important to understand that Neptune is a highly spiritual and very deeply connected planet when it comes to the boundary between our own higher levels of consciousness, our own spiritual journey, the etheric, dreams, inspiration, and of course, how we actually interact with the world of spirit and manifest what we are here to create from spirit, from our own inspiration, from our own higher levels of consciousness. And so whenever Neptune makes a big move, we also see a big change from the roads we've come down that maybe didn't have anything to do with what was a part of our soul's story. We've seen a lot of these things kind of come up, especially in the last couple of months. Neptune has been cresting the cusp of Aries since the beginning of the year. Of course, the North Node went back into Pisces as well, focusing on a big turn in priorities away from maybe the way we've been kind of running things and focusing a bit more on what is my soul's journey, what is my soul's story, and what is it that is going to be the component that gives me the life or gives me the realization of a deeply personal wish or dream, maybe something I came into this life with, not even something that I just came up with. And also with the powerhouse combination of Neptune's near immediate sextile to Pluto in Aquarius, as well as Saturn catching up and joining, and also Chiron having been in Aries for the last 5.5 years. This is the kind of move that doesn't build up slow. This is the kind of move that releases a Neptunian tsunami to force everything to start moving in a direction that is actually in accordance with our soul's true story, as well as also bring in that Neptunian focus of raising consciousness, also bringing about completions and important movements away from and towards whatever it is we must depart and whatever it is we are to initiate. Now, a big part of this is going to include a lot of rude awakenings, but also at the same time, the actual beginnings of what we could consider our best life setup, whatever that is going to be for each and all of you. I do want to remind people that if you are curious as to what's going on with any particular given sign, you can check out your monthlies for April. I did do a little bit of a soundbite discussion of like where Neptune is going to be for each sign, and that that will help you a little bit. But when we're talking about outer planets like Neptune, we are talking about a move that's going to affect all areas of our charts at once. And of course, there is no way to give a personal reading when we are putting anything up on YouTube, right? It's kind of like the free bread at the restaurant. It's not ever going to have all the nutrients of an entree. So if you ever do want to get a personal reading with me, and I can then look at your personal chart and your personal planets and what's going on, head on over to my website, integrativemysticism.com, But now we're just going to be talking about some of the bigger themes that are going on everywhere, pretty much universally. And I will leave and we'll go from there. And of course, if you would be so kind, don't forget to like and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. But with that all said, let's get down to business and talk about this Neptune move. So as I already said, Neptune is the planet of inspiration, dreams, spirituality, consciousness, the etheric, completion. It is also the planet of mystery. It is the planet of connection. It is also the planet of flow and the planet of transformation, not so much in the realms of, say, death and destruction, which is more of a Plutonian kind of rule, but more about transformation in terms of the alterations, of course. Maybe alteration would be a better way to look at Neptune. Neptune has been in Pisces for the last 14 years or so, and over the course of this last 14 years, Neptune has been very much raising, I guess you could say, awareness of what we could call higher consciousness in the populace, right? When it comes to raising higher consciousness, this could be through spirituality, this could be through mysticism, through magic. Neptune in Pisces also does sometimes raise up the focus on more organized kind of movements. So we talk about like organized religion and organized spirituality. Institutions as well can sometimes rise up during a Neptune in Pisces era. And we've definitely seen a lot of that as well. Heck, there's a lot of people, even though it's very ill-advised, turning, astrology and tarot and magic and mysticism and, a lot of personal journeys into a church and institution. And again, that's no good. But Neptune is there to raise up consciousness when he's in Pisces. When Neptune goes on into Aries, now we have a shift in how Neptune goes about enacting that raised consciousness, whatever is going on, wherever it's been going on. Because Aries is all about action, passion, energy, and new beginnings. And so as Neptune steps into Aries, the first thing that often happens is we see, as we've said, the rude awakenings that can sometimes happen on our personal stories, with our personal stories, while also not just rude awakenings, but also great initiations and great confirmations and revelations that we do need to be ready to adjust our courses with and for. So with rude awakenings, let's bring it on down to the personal level, right? How could a rude awakening show up in a person's life? Well, a rude awakening could show up in the form of you're never going to get what you've been trying to make happen in a certain space that you've been sitting in, or with the people, or with the spot that you have been trying to hold your reality together with. You might find out some kind of irrefutable message that, no, it's impossible. This will not happen, and it's something that just can't come together. Yes, there is the rude awakening, but then there is also the door that is opening up to, okay, well, if not this, what will? If not here, where? If not with these people, with whom? And this is the rude awakening coupled with, again, an alteration of course. And that is what leads to the Neptune sextile Pluto experience, which is all about slow endings and transitions that have been inching along to their finale since probably about mid-2023, because Neptune and Pluto have been sort of teasing communications with each other without really letting each other know what's going on. That's what happens when you have a planet that's technically in a sign that's not super close to another sign in terms of any kind of major aspect communication. Neptune's been in Pisces. Pluto had already moved on into Aquarius, but there was still a sextile, but the messages were just not crossing over very well. So there was this feeling of this, hey, things are about to move, things are about to end, slow endings, slow transitions, something's getting lost in translation, because stuff always gets lost in translation between Aquarian and Neptunian energy. And so ever since about, let's just say mid-2023, there has been this wake-up call of it's about to end. Whatever is about to end. Strongest from April, pretty much for the rest of 2025, with many departures getting underway even before completion of old business is wrapped up. So this is a time where we want to be ready to make some important steps with, okay, I know I need to be ending this situation here. I know this is coming to a close. I've got my rude awakening that it's never going to happen here. It's never going to happen in this situation. It's never going to happen under these conditions. All of the parts and components are wrong. It's time for me to move on. And some of these things have been already getting more and more emphasized since 2023, but there are a lot of things that could also have been even trying to kick on since Chiron entered Aries just a little over 5 years ago. And so what we might notice here as well with Chiron going, since then, kind of pushing for big departure opportunities and new trajectories for everybody, especially ones that would be putting our soul's journey back on its proper track, if ever at a point in time we kind of veered from it. However, Chiron alone in Aries has been a bit handicapped, or a bit of a handicap for the Aries energy. Because Chiron, of course, all by himself, when he doesn't have another planet in that sign with him, tends to falter, tends to not do very well, and kind of becomes sort of a lame observer, a holdout and a processor. And so a lot of this last few years has been kind of like the slow burning out of a lot of things that we do need to leave to have a real new beginning. And this is where it's kind of, again, the message is rude awakening here, but the opportunity to realize what you're trying to realize if you let go of your shit and whatever you're attached to that the rude awakening is telling you to let go of, and change your trajectory, change the direction you're facing, right? This is the time of becoming more aware of where the new initiation is, letting yourself be moved away, maneuvered, shifted out to something better. You're going to do really well. This can be intensely challenging to our egos, especially if much personal time and investment may have been sunk into what work or what can't ever work and what won't produce what, I guess you could say the big agenda was. But it is also extremely powerful for maneuvering oneself out of limiting spaces and surroundings into what will work. And that's, again, the big takeaway of Neptune going into Aries. And we're all going to be experiencing that in many different corners of our worlds at the same time. So let's talk about what is going on the spiritual side of things, because Neptune, of course, is the greater spiritual planet. It's one of our top 3 spiritual celestial bodies. Whenever he does something big, we do have to pay attention to what's going on with our consciousness. So if Neptune is all about connectivity, the boundary between realms of consciousness, as well as the etheric in general, what is going on the non-physical, on the etheric into the physical? So this is where it's the discussion of what your dreams are made of, as well as what you're doing with your energy, what you're doing on the astral, what you're doing in your higher levels of consciousness, what is going on up there is starting to be revealed and a lot more evident and manifest in terms of how it's interpreted and showing up in your life down here. And so when that happens, it starts to change the landscape and the layout of our world. And if we are in a space where it's like on the physical, we are not actually working in spaces or in situations that actually really do match the vibe of what is going on with our soul and what is going on with our spirit in terms of, again, higher priorities, as it were, we start shifting around. And yes, there are a lot of bigger picture reasons for that, because maybe it's true. You were never supposed to be doing this or doing that or sitting here where you are, or maybe you were never supposed to be trying to force something to happen a long time ago, and now you're seeing the end of what you forced to happen a long time ago, and now it's just kind of coming kaput. But at the same time, everything that you've been having going on in terms of your soul's aspirations is getting a chance to be realized, but under completely different conditions. And when Neptune is in Aries, right, great initiations and new beginnings, Neptune moves faster. It's not necessarily all about just kind of, checking the temperature of the water and the waves and just kind of working with what's going on where. Neptune in Aries is a lot more intense. It is all about, look, we could have started maybe working through these things or acknowledging the truth of these things and paying attention to these things over the course of the last 5 years. Some people did, some people didn't, some people were caught in the middle, but now Neptune going into Aries here is this big turn. So again, a lot of major departures, but also a lot of great initiations happening at the same time. A lot of very important revelations also about soul journeys, about soul connections. I do think with Neptune going into Aries, Neptune in Aries, very similarly to Chiron in Aries, does kind of command a lot of us to start paying close attention to what and where our truest soul connections are. Now, Chiron has also been doing that as well since the end of 2019, kind of initiating a lot of quests, but also at the same time is also a departure from how we consider connection, support, and community. You know, Neptune in Pisces, again, sometimes it can be all about treating everything just based on a unit mentality if we're not careful, right? The family unit, the social unit, the community unit, the work unit. And that's why sometimes, you know, you get these situations where people kind of are not really forming individual connections and relationships. It's really more about group identification. A lot of people running in looking to, you know, catch a ride on a frequency they're not on, or a lot of people trying to bring in, you know, organized religion programming and to spaces where it's not appropriate and make it happen there. You know what I'm talking about? Neptune going into Aries is kind of like, no. You don't get to ride on another person's journey anymore. You don't get to ride on another person's story anymore. You do not get to be carried by the group. You do not get to be carried by the wave. You get to swim on your own in your own river. And if other people belong in that river with you, it's because they naturally belong in that river with you. We're in our own rivers. And that is going to be, I think, a huge, in my opinion, wake up, shake up in a good way. But for some people, that could also be a rude awakening. But that's also going to trickle on down, of course, into our everyday experiences as well, because a lot of the, you know, when we talk about life on the planet, groupthink, herd mentality, you know, it's all about just not, you know, you can hide you don't have to know who you are if you just embody a community or embody an image, right? That's all going away. Thank fucking God. It's all going away. But it is a time where I think, especially in the beginnings, a lot of this breaking up of all of that could create some interesting stirs. Not hating it. But it's also a beautiful period for getting a chance to actually be in the right river for you, with the right surroundings, in the right space, the right environment, with the right people for you. Getting back on your own soul's river and getting back in your own soul's journey. Doesn't matter how far from it you've been. Chiron has been kind of inching us all back to that since the last 5 years has, you know, been kind of kicked up. Now it's time to see what happens for real. And depending on how it's kind of gone, you know, and depending on where a person is in terms of their awareness, you know, those rude awakenings may also confirm they didn't belong doing what they were doing, or they might realize something may never happen or never start and is impossible to make happen with the river or the space or the lake or the pond or the ocean that they tried to set up shop in. And it's time to, you know, we all have little spots in our lives where we got to pay attention to where that may have been. And that could have been something we've been doing for a long time. So again, great rude awakenings, but also great departures and great initiations all at once. So let's talk about some global predictions for the next 14 years. Neptune in Aries is, again, going to be getting down to business very, very quickly. And it's only going to pick up faster and faster. Now, when it comes to global predictions, it's always a, you know, tricky spot if you're an astrologer. And for myself, I, you know, every once in a while, I may or may not put up a discussion about global situations. Couldn't give less of a shit of what people think is going on and what daddy figure they're attached to. But I do think we need to talk a little bit about what is coming up, because there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of astrological cherry picking going on from a lot of astrologers out there in algorithm mode, just trying to get views and trying to raise up hype. So I am going to start off with probably the biggest topic, or one of the biggest topics around this, and that is the discussion of the potential of another United States civil war. And is that something that's going to be coming around? Now, Neptune going back into Aries is, yes, a throwback to the era of the 1860s, and from, you know, the 1860s into the mid 1870s, there was a lot of huge transformations going on globally. Yes, lots of revolutions. Yes, even a civil war, but also, of course, the Industrial Revolution and a lot of medical advancements all going on at the same time. Neptune in Aries alone does not predicate any kind of event that is going to necessarily happen on a global scale. It can't. And I'm going to go further and make a point of saying, even if we see one or two astrological components that mirror a past time, we don't want to confuse themes with events, right? They're different words. And also at the same time, we don't want to project or push themes with events with global occurrences, because not only is it just inaccurate and bad astrology, it's also, it kind of just messes with people's heads in a very dishonest way. So no, I do not see a civil war in the United States. At least not the war part, and we'll talk about that a little bit, because I think the United States is going through a massive transformation of what its map looks like, but I don't think it's going to be something that comes in the form of a war. And I don't think it's going to be a repeat of the 1860s in that sense either. One big reason for that is, while yes, Neptune will be in Aries, and yes, Uranus will be in Gemini, two other major components of the 19th century Civil War in the US, Pluto in Taurus and Saturn in Virgo, are missing from the equation. And that is because, well, Pluto is not going to be in Taurus for a very long time. Pluto's in Aquarius right now, and Saturn won't be in Virgo for a very long time. Saturn's about to go into Aries as well. And when Saturn goes into Aries, there is this focus on controlled action, where there is decisive action for change, for great departures and great initiations and new beginnings, but not in a way where it is chaotic, belligerent, and out of control on a warlike scale. You know, Saturn going into Aries disciplines the sign of war. Now, what I do see is, however, yes, a territorial change in how a lot of the US actually runs itself in terms of federal government versus smaller government, and also even a transformation when it comes to potential boundary matters around specific states in the lower 48. And so maybe it won't be the lower 48 anymore. It might be, you know, kind of looking a bit more like a big territorial or almost big provincial system, not unlike Canada, where you have a lot more isolated territories that are a lot more self-governing, but also still have some federal overhead. I do feel like with Saturn going into Aries alongside Neptune as well, a lot of the general US population is going to be kind of abandoning both current and past leadership in favor of a bit more of a Wild West kind of scenario, which is also very much a late 19th century US thing, and likely something that is going to be sort of a disowning of what could be considered a lot of the attachments that various groups and populations have made to all kinds of different leaders across the board. And I think that what's going to end up happening is, again, it's going to be up to the territories that get created, right? Different states kind of working together, becoming one, whether they literally dissolve the boundaries between those states or not, and kind of becoming, again, more of their own sovereign entities, or more sovereign as they are. And we're also going to see, again, a bit of a shift away from the way we've handled politics, because Neptune is leaving Pisces. Again, this sort of abandoning of everyone tribe up. It's the end of the tribal era. And luckily, I think Neptune going into Aries is going to, again, it's going to take people out of ponds and lakes and oceans that they had no business kind of floating in, and get them back on their own rivers, right? Do something about your own true soul's path. Get back to what's going on with you. Stop hiding from your soul and your soul's journey in a crowd of people because you don't know who you are. We also have some major turns in terms of the tech revolution that is going on, right? Of course, speaking to automation, because Pluto going into Aquarius is basically ramping up automation in very, very fast terms, especially this next couple of years. And Neptune in Aries is, as well as Uranus going into Gemini later on in 2025, is really raising up AI. And what happens over the course of just the next 4 to 5 years alone is such a rapid turn from what we consider our customary hour work week, or customary hourly work week, I should say, in such a drastic way that it does alter basically a lot of our societal structure, because a lot of our societal structures are well, designed around our work week or the expectations of the labor that we contribute to our work week. And so what happens is that we end up in a space where, yes, a lot of different fields suddenly become replaced by automation, by AI, or at least savagely shrunk in terms of workplace populations and people actually employed doing those jobs. AI is doing it, automation is doing it, and so we have this huge transformation of what we could consider the workforce play field. And I do think that what's going to end up happening is that by the time we get to 2030, and I talked about this a little bit in my Pluto in Aquarius video as well, is that this is going to necessitate a change in the way we handle our basic economy. And it's very likely, just out of practical necessity, some kind of discussion of a universal basic income implementation or comparable adjustment for handling of, our own accommodations in terms of how do we get money, how much do we get, when do we get it, how do we handle currency economically. That's going to be something that we really have to pay attention to. And that brings me to my next big shift that I see going on, again, sooner than later, probably by 2035. So again, in less than 10 years, the life extension crisis. Because I am seeing a great deal of advents and huge turns when it comes to longevity and age reversing technology that's actually going to be made pretty widely available to everybody. And so when we talk about life expectancy or life extension, we are talking about raising the life expectancy quite significantly. And I think it's not just scientifically possible, it's scientifically likely that, a lot of us are going to be living to be 110, 115, 120 years old. That changes the way you pace and look at your whole life. Because sometimes, when we look at what we plan and how we're doing things, and if we expect to die at a certain age only to find out we've got an extra 25, 30 years, it changes where we want to sit, how long we want to do something, if we want to continue something. And when we get to an opportunity for age reversing, life extension, all of that, which is coming up real quick in a very natural and very complementarian way to just kind of fixing how, we kind of go through those processes, it changes the world as we structure it, right? If you're going to live to be 110, 115, 120 and not have to work a 40-hour work week, what would you do with your life instead? What do you want to do? Do you want to stay where you are anymore? Because maybe the only reason you're staying where you are is because you were planning on, I want to do this until I can't do this until retirement. I can't leave this until this situation. I want to leave, but I've put too much time in here. What if it's not half your life anymore? It's a very interesting philosophical change that we all have to look at. This is the time of the pursuit of true independent personal happiness, right? Neptune putting us in our own rivers, getting us back aligned with our own rivers, even with some rude awakenings of where we've been trying to maybe create, make, or put something in the wrong ocean, in the wrong pond, in the wrong waters. It doesn't matter how long you've been trying to make it happen. But if you get more life and you get a chance to get away from what's been going on into your own river, it's actually a beautiful change. It's actually quite a strong mercy if we are smart enough to handle it well and also be ready to, focus on a bit more of the Neptune in Aries boost that we're getting from all of this. But it does require us to, again, be more independently accountable, self-aware, and also be more independent in our pursuit of happiness so that we can, of course, find our rivers that have everything we need and who we need to make that happiness a reality. And so just something to think about as we go into this next few years, because Neptune in Aries is a fast mover in 2025, immediately connecting with Pluto, and then Saturn, and then Gemini, and then Uranus when he goes into Gemini. There is no slowing anything down. A lot of this has been getting teased by Chiron, but not fully enacted, just kind of more like processed this last 5 years. This is going to be now the pusher. So that is what I have for you all as far as Neptune going into Aries goes in 2025. Leave a question or comment in the down bar below, and if you ever want to get a personal reading with me, head on over to my website, integrativemysticism.com.